Welcome back to another week with Michelle Green and KBCR Credit and Financial Tips. We are so excited. We are so excited to talk about rental properties today. We are super excited because this is an arena that many of you may be living in right now and struggling with, and we have some solutions for you. So make sure you go ahead and tell a friend. If you know somebody who's renting property, you need to make sure that they are tuned in to today's message. All right. So as always, we come in with the understanding that we are here to learn more about credit and about our finances. So let me go ahead and begin by starting with the solution to credit, or actually just the answer to what credit is. So first off, we know that whenever we have credit, we have the ability to be able to buy something that we don't have enough money for. So I want to always establish that when we look at credit, period, when we look at the whole credit game at all, we are looking at the fact that we earn money and we don't always have enough money to pay for the things that we need or the things that we want. So the availability of financial institutions to give us the leniency of being able to purchase something because we don't have enough money in hand or in our bank accounts, now we can go to the financial institutions or to the lenders or creditors that we know of and purchase something through credit. So it gives us that ability to be able to contract with a lender, a creditor, a financial institution so that we can pay over a long period of time or a short period of time, whatever it is that we did not have enough money for to begin with, okay? So that's what the credit is all about. So we want to understand how to really play the credit game. When we are thinking about playing this credit game, we have to understand that there are so many different components to it, and you will not learn this in one lesson, okay? You will not learn this just by starting out as a person who's just graduating from high school or someone that's in their 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s. It doesn't matter the age limit. All of us have a different starting point, but the starting point of the game of credit always ends up in the same process, okay? The process is the same for everyone. So that's what we want to establish, is that no matter where you are in the world, no matter what your circumstances and situations are, we always want to establish that everyone has to go through a very similar process. Even though we don't have exactly the same things on our credit, when we do gain credit, we know that credit itself is mainly just something that we don't have enough money for, and we're making a promise to say that we're going to pay back the lump sum of money that we are lent from the lender or that we are granted from the original creditor. Whomever is giving us that credibility, we are making a promise that we're going to pay them back. Now, we've already talked about in the previous lessons about not paying people back, and we will dive into that as we go forward in the future topics. But today, we are talking about rental properties. Now, first off, I want us to understand that in the credit arena says that we have about four credit bureaus that are in the original credit arena. So when we think about who are we going through in order for us to gain credit, the first thing we want to establish is that Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion are our core major credit bureaus. So these are the companies that report the information that once we gain credit, they are going to hold the creditor's information, that original company, the financial institution that you went through in order to gain credit. But there's also a fourth credit bureau called a Novus, and those are the four companies, credit bureaus that are usually checked whenever we establish any type of credit. But did you know that there are other kinds of credit reporting agencies? So I want us to really just switch off the Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and Innovis for just a moment and thinking about our credit. And I want us to switch to our rental reporting agencies. Did you know that there are different rental reporting agencies? Yes, you heard correctly, that report renters information. So we first want to understand that there is a completely different world in the rental reporting agencies that exist that share our information about whether or not we have a good rental history. Maybe some of you don't even have a rental history at all because you've never put any type of rental property in your name. So today we are going to break down the rental properties process as well as understanding how to position ourselves to make sure that we don't have any issues with renting property. And you might be thinking, well, how does this relate to credit? Well, I'm going to get into that in just a minute, okay? So, for starters, let's look at some of the major rental reporting companies rather, that have information about our renting period, in our life. So maybe you had an apartment basically when you first started out of high school, out of college, you got a property. Maybe you put the property in your name and somebody else was renting the property itself. Regardless of what has happened with the rental property, what we have to understand is that when we are renting a property, the first stage is understanding that there is a rental property that is going to run a screen of your rental history through a rental reporting company. So, who are these rental reporting companies? There are thousands of them. I want you to understand that in everything that we do, every section of what we do in the financial world, as it relates to money, has its own reporting system. Okay, so that's the one thing that we really need to establish. Every type of system, whether we're doing banking, whether we're doing our regular credit, if we're doing our rental history, everything has its own reporting system. So how does this system exist at all? So what we got to think about is when we provide data about ourselves, no matter where we are providing the data is collected from data furnishers. Data furnishers are people who simply collect data information, any type of information, your name, your address, your social, your date of birth. They collect your email address. They collect your whatever, anything that you have to report is going to end up in a data furnishing system, and that data furnishing system will then provide the information to the proper reporting agencies. So our rental reporting agency, as I was saying earlier, we have a list of companies that I want to share, but I'm not going to give you every single one of them. If you are interested in knowing and understanding how to get your rental property history corrected, if you had any evictions, any issues with not being able to rent a property, then you need to get into the KBCR program so we can dive into your particular files and see what is there. But first, I'm going to give you a list of just a little short list of rental properties that are reporting information from these companies that are screening your rental history. So number one, and one of the most popular companies that are running credit checks for rental properties is called TransUnion Smart Move. Okay, TransUnion Smart Move, that's a part of one of the credit bureaus. So what happens is the way that the system is going to track your rental history, they have to go pull from TransUnion, but they're also pulling from a different reporting system. So even though you may look at your TransUnion credit report, it may not show you exactly the same things that are on the TransUnion Smart Move rental history screening process. So when I say screening, I'm just talking about the fact that they're looking at all the data that is in this rental reporting agency system. So when we look at that TransUnion Smart Move, what are they looking at? They collect data about us. They collect the data about our credit, but they also collect data about any criminal history. Do we have any people who have any criminal history out there? So if you've had any problems with renting a property, and it may be related to the fact that there may have been some criminal history. And let me tell you, we've been doing credit for over 30 plus years, and we have seen where even though you may not think that there is incorrect data in the rental reporting agency system, let me tell you, we have seen so many bizarre things in these rental reporting histories. Listen, we've had people that have shown up in a criminal history with these rental reporting systems. We have seen where someone had an accident in a parking lot and they were listed as a criminal. So we have really bizarre things that could be holding you back from being able to get the rental property that you desire. And it's all because you are not aware of where you need to go and look to see if that rental property history, if that rental reporting agency is clear with the correct information. So that is really the biggest ordeal that we have to understand. Just like we clean up our credit reports with Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, we have to clean up our rental reporting agencies report as well, and our banking and all of these other things. So with TransUnion Smart Move, they are looking at criminal, they're looking at your credit, and they are looking at eviction reports. So how many of us have had a previous eviction? Maybe back in the day, we signed our names to a friend to get an apartment, or a family member to get an apartment or a condo or townhouse or whatever. Or maybe we ourselves just didn't understand how to play the housing game. So we decided that we were going to allow an eviction to take place. And maybe we just got kicked out because of non-payment for whatever reason, or because of a disturbance in the area. But the point of the matter is that every one of these screening companies, every one of these companies that are looking at the rental history that you have, they are looking at whether or not you have a component of one of these things that I'm naming, okay? They are looking at, what was your history with your previous landlord? Were you always arguing with them? Were you doing what you were supposed to do? So let's go through this list. I'm going to give you a couple of more that you need to be made aware of. There is TransUnion Smart Move. There is Appfolio, that's spelled Appfolio. Appfolio is another comprehensive property screening system that is for rental history. Then we have tenantreports.com. We have CoreLogic, CoreLogic. We also have some of the other systems like Experian Connect, and we have LexisNexis, which is not necessarily for rental property, but what happens because so much data is sent to LexisNexis and so many other companies, they are pulling information from whatever furnishing data company that is out there. So LexisNexis is another big one. So again, we have TransUnion Smart Move, okay? We have Rent Spree. I probably didn't name that one, but Rent Spree, RentSpree. We have CoreLogic, Rental Property Solutions. We have Experian Connect. We have tenantsreports.com, TENANT reports, REPORTS.com, and we have Appfolio. Now, those are some of the major ones that we deal with in our credit system. There's always a few more, of course. There's always someone that we may not have heard of that we run across as we're going through trying to clean up the rental history for our clients. So, one of the things that we want to understand first is, like I just said, the companies that are running the rental history, it will be dependent on who that company is managed by. So the managed company, who, wherever the rental property is that you are trying to rent, whether it's a house, a condo, an apartment, or whatever it is, they have a rental company that they are going to screen your rental history through, and you first need to know who they are going through. Now, just because you now know this information, I do want you to understand that it does not mean that the rental property that you want to rent is going to tell you who they're doing their screening through. But I'm giving you as a heads up, just a warning, just in case you kind of get real, confident and you decide, well, hey, I'm going to find out exactly who they are going through. So then I can go and review my rental history. Well, that's not how the game works in the rental history. You have to really dig deep and do your own research so that you can find out exactly where the people are pulling your rental history from. And like I said before, these are some of the top companies. LexisNexis is also included in the data that they are pulling the information from. But these are just a few of the companies that are like the top rental reporting agencies that are out there for us to do a rental screening through. So first, let's just clarify that. We got that out the way, right? Okay, good. So we don't want to just run up on these rental properties and decide that, hey, I want to know who you're running my rental history through so that I can contact them and I can make corrections with that rental reporting agency. So the rental reporting agency also, when you communicate with them, may or may not be very willing to do business with you. Like they may or may not want to help you, and they may require you to send in legal documentation before they would even consider having a conversation with you about removing anything from your credit report. So that's why Kingdom Builders Credit Repair is here to help you, because these are things that we have dealt with over the past 30 years with our hundreds of thousands of clients that have come through our program. And everybody is unique in that no two people have the same rental history either, just like they don't have the same credit reporting information with the credit reporting agencies. So what we want to understand first is that there are so many companies that are pulling your data. It doesn't matter what they are pulling the data for. You got to understand how to play the game. And if you don't know how to play the game properly, then that is what Kingdom Builders Credit Repair is for. All right, so that's the first part that I wanted to share. And it's a very significant thing to understand, which may be the very reason why you cannot rent a property. Know that there are hundreds and thousands of people out here right now that are having problems with being evicted, having problems with random non-renewal opportunities for where they currently live. People are saying that they cannot renew the lease. People are saying that they have to move out of their houses because they're going to sell their houses, or the landlord is going to sell the house or fix it up and let somebody else rent it out, and they may or may not tell you why they're asking you to move. But we are running into so many of our clients that are renters that are having an issue with being able to have a decent place to live because of the economy and the way that things are set up now.
People really want you to be at a certain status in order for you to get a decent place to live. So let's go through the pre-screening process. What are these people looking for that want that are telling you that you can't rent from them anymore? What are they looking for, and why are they doing what they're doing? They're doing what they're doing because they understand that as the economy changes, that they got to either get consistency in their system of how they're receiving their payments so that they can stay above water. So it is always a trickle effect when it comes to money and finances and credit of any kind. All right. So just understand that. Now, the pre-screening process begins with a few things. Now, I know that sometimes we are really frustrated. We're dealing with all kind of, some of us are dealing with health problems, some of us are dealing with death, some of us are dealing with job losses or layoffs or in between jobs and all of these different scenarios, okay? But the first thing I want us to understand is before we decide that we want to rent a property, we better have some consistent income, because the first thing that they are going to be looking for is the consistency of your income to make sure that you can afford to pay for the property rent for whatever it is. And these landlords, these people who are rental property managers, they are saying that they don't want just the ability for you to be able to barely make the payment. They want you to be able to make it and have like a few months in the bag. That means that you need to have, if the rent is $1,500 a month, then you need to have at least 2 to 3 times 1,500 in your bank account, showing that you are very well set aside, you are very well prepared for being able to rent this property and keep the property up. So that's why the first thing is the issue of us not understanding that if we don't have a consistent job right now, if we're in between jobs, if we have a part-time job, or if we have a job where maybe we are a business owner and we don't have anything reporting consistently in our business bank account, or maybe we don't even have a business bank account and we are a business owner. That's a whole different topic. Go to kb.michellegreen and make sure that you subscribe so that you can get tips on business information. All right, but back to what I was saying. So the first thing is making sure that they understand that you have a consistent flow of income. So if you are a business owner and you don't show any money going into an account that is a business bank account that is listed by your business name, if you don't know how to set that up, we can help you with that as well. But the issue is, the first problem is that most of us are going into these rental properties and we don't really have consistent income. We have not been working on the job or in the business long enough to show proof that we can handle 3 times as much as the rent that is required of where we want to live. All right. So the next thing that they look at, of course, is going to be your credit. Now, when they look at the credit score, they're looking for between a 580 to a 680. I'm talking about the nicer that the rental property is going to require the higher score. So you cannot come below a 580. And most of the time we are seeing that you cannot go below a 620. That's what they are looking for in the rental properties. They want your credit score to be at least a 620 or higher, but preferably a 680 or 700 will get you wherever you want to live. Okay. So you want to make sure that you got your credit down packed. That's another reason why you want to come to Kingdom Builders Credit Repair, so we can help you with that. Then they also look for other things. And these are the things that most of us don't really consider. They look for if you have a working phone number. You know how some of us like to switch phone numbers and we'll change our number in the middle of, whatever, because we are tired of certain people calling our phone, or, we got that person who we done broke up with and we decided, okay, well, I'm going to just switch my number. Well, your relationship issues shouldn't affect your rental history, but it does. So when you are changing anything as it relates to renting property or even for your credit, any variations are going to be a negative against you. So people want to see that your credit report shows the same phone number as the rental history number that they have when they screen your files. So your phone number is something that they look at. Next, they look at your email address. No matter if you have a Gmail, a Yahoo, a AOL, a Me, or whomever it is, you want to make sure that you're consistently using the same email address when you apply for the rental property, because they are looking at inconsistencies of how many different email addresses are you giving them. So don't go into the rental property office and fill out any applications and submit any application fees until you are sure on at least these four things: income, making sure your credit is decent, making sure you have a consistent phone number that they can reach you back at, and also an email address. Okay. They are also looking for other things that may not necessarily be on paper, but it's going to allow them to see if whether or not you are a person who they really want to rent too. Okay, so the intangible things that they look for are when they do communicate with you, how is your communication skills? Okay, how are your communication skills when you talk to them on the phone or you go in person to meet with them? So, one of the things that they look at when you're renting a property and whether or not they decide to rent that property to you after you have covered the first four things is they look at if you are eagerly trying to get into a place. So, what am I saying? Are you really eager to sign the lease? Are you really eager to get into this particular apartment because maybe you have been in a situation where the previous landlord is evicting you or telling you you got 30 days, you got 5 days, you got 10 days, 15 days or whatever, and you're in a urgent type of situation. The issue though is you don't need to let the rental property people who you want to go with know that you are in an urgent situation. You never ever want to tell them that you are in a hurry to see if you can get approval. You want to just kind of like keep it cool and collected in the same manner that we don't want creditors to know that we need their money. It's the same way when you're renting property that you don't want the renters to know that you need to rent this place like urgently. Okay, so we want to establish that we are not going to be eager in trying to get the place. We're not going to tell them all of these different stories around, oh well, I'm coming out of a bad relationship, or I'm coming out of the hospital and I had a problem with my previous landlord. You don't want to give them any ammunition to not be able to rent to you. So, if you're talking to a new landlord, a new rental property, you want to just make it seem like that you are calm, cool, and collected, and that you have options. And I do want you to have options because when we think about renting a property, we don't want the dependency of just looking at one place or another. We want to be able to understand that, hey, we have the ability to rent to multiple places. So why are we just dependent on one or two places that we went to because maybe we didn't have enough time to go look? Listen, the internet, it's a whole world out there. We could literally just go and search a whole area and find out what are the apartments in this area. And that's what some of us need to really break down and do. If we want to live in a certain area, we need to find all of the rental properties that are located under a particular zip code. Or we need to look at all of the rental properties that are in the particular area where you may want your children to go to school. You want to look at all of the different things that are in that area, whether it's a school, a hospital, a fire department, a police department. You want to see what's in the arena of the properties, and you don't want to limit yourself to one or two places. Even if you have to venture outside of the radius of where you want to live, it would be better for you to venture out just a little bit than for you to limit yourself to be dependent on one or two rental properties to say yes that you can rent with them. Okay, so let's establish that we don't want to be eager to sign the lease. Number, I don't know what number this is, but the next point that I'm making about rental properties is that you don't want to be disrespectful when you are communicating with these people. You want to be on your best behavior. You want to, whether or not the rental property manager is talking nice to you, you need to put a smile on their face. You want to develop a healthy relationship out the gate. I hear this all the time that people have gone to try to rent a property, and the issue is that they got attitudes. They mad, they frustrated, they're thinking about all the money that they got to come up with, the 2 and the 3 times the monthly rent. They're afraid, and there's a lot of fear involved. But you need to just stop and pause and inhale and exhale and say, before I go into this rental property, before I pick up this cell phone and start talking to someone, I'm going to calm myself down and I'm going to talk politely. I'm not going to start an argument. I'm not going to start a debate. I'm not going to make them feel like, okay, well, they got to have me. I'm not going to go into the equation of trying to rent the property with any kind of disrespectful behavior. Okay, so that is another thing. Now, another thing that we look at when we're looking at it from the rental property, companies, the landlords, and the people who manage the property to see if we can get approval. Another thing that we don't think about is if they have scheduled an appointment to meet with us and we decide that we're not going to show up for whatever reason. Even if you already have another rental property in process of approving you, you still need to show up to let the other rental property know that, hey, okay, I decline, moving forward with this offer because I have a different offer. Just show up and let them know something or give them a call. I mean, what harm is it in us picking up the phone to say, hey, listen, I don't have I have a different opportunity to move somewhere else. So I'm gonna go with that one, and just don't just ghost them. It's what I'm saying. Don't just not show up for your appointment and then think that you can go back later on and maybe need their services. Listen, guys, you never want to burn a bridge when it comes to housing. You never want to burn a bridge when it comes to renting any type of property, and especially purchasing property. But we'll talk about that on another session. So we want to make sure that we don't have any no-shows. We want to make sure we're not disrespectful. We want to make sure we're not showing that we are super eager to go into the rental property and telling them all of our history of our business, personal stuff that's going on in our life. We want to cancel all of that, even if they bring it up. Because I will tell you that most rental managers are actually asking certain questions or having certain types of conversations with you just to see if you're going to have an explosion, if you're going to have an attitude, if you're going to be disrespectful. They're looking for key points when they decide whether or not you're going to be the person that they rent to. Now, I want to also just point out that you don't want to have any also unreasonable negotiations. You do not want to go into the rental property and try to tell them how much money you're going to pay for rent. Okay, you don't want to discuss what the rent was at the previous place where you were renting or currently are renting. You want to go with what are the rules and regulations of their rent amount. And then you want to talk to them about possibly doing a year lease. A 2-year lease would allow you to pay maybe you would pay a lesser amount because you're committing to be in the property a little longer. So you can decide on either a 6-month lease for most rental properties. You can do a year lease and you can do a 2-year lease. And for some properties, you may be able to do a 3 to 5 year lease. But that will be only the time that you would want to make a negotiation, not just going to a property and deciding that, hey, I'm going to set the amount of money that I'm going to pay, even though they're telling me that this is the rent amount for a 1 bedroom, a 2 bedroom, a 3 bedroom, a 4 bedroom, a 5 bedroom, etc. We do not set the tone, and we should never go into a rental property deciding that we're going to set the tone for them, because the tone is already set and it comes from the corporate arena of the rental property. So even though you see the managers, the people who are managing the property behind the desk, you got to understand, guys, that they are not the ones that are making this decision. And even if it is a rental property where it's a personal individual property, where someone as a individual has a house and they're going to rent their house out, you still don't want to bombard them with negotiations. What you want to do, if you are willing to be at the property for more than 12 months, then you can start making the negotiation of what you would like to pay and wait for their answer. Don't try to overtalk them. Don't try to like be a pushover. Just wait for the answer. And then at the end of the day, you both will come to a negotiation that hopefully pleases both parties. Does that make sense? I hope so. So, what I'm going to do, since we are already at time and I had some more things that I wanted to share about the rental property history, is we will continue this conversation on next Friday, 12:30 to 1, and we will make sure that we continue this conversation to make sure that everybody understands how to get into these rental properties, and we will talk about the eviction process as well. All right, thank you guys for watching today. We make sure that you are subscribed to the Kingdom Builders Credit Repair YouTube channel. Make sure that you are subscribed, okay? Go ahead, tell a friend and set your notifications so that you never ever miss the opportunity to connect with us in the credit and financial tips here at KBCR TV Show, powered by CTR Media. All right, until next time, we will see you then, and we'll continue our conversation on rental property history. All right, take care. Bye.